It's the first time we've done it. This is the inaugural event. I feel like it went pretty well. Got pretty decent feedback. So we have a whole bunch of books that we intend to raffle away at the end of this, immediately after this, like closing notes. I think about 6 months ago, we all sat together at LNTI and we're like, what are you doing? I don't know what I'm doing. It's still a conference. And it turned out a lot better than that conversation, let's put it that way. So there are a couple people that I absolutely need to thank. Because I had the idea for this conference and I had some correctional control over it, but mostly it was like pulling the ripcord and watching people go. All of these people are part of our team at LNTI. Jason Dixon and Catherine Geschke, who organized the entire event. They were the puppet masters. These beautiful, the logo, the website, the stands, the fact that you can find rooms, the AV stuff, all that screeching. I learned that from my daughter. That's Miguel Monez and Jess Brown, who've been videotaping you and recording you. We intend to put all of that stuff online for free, and I asked Miguel, I was like, I'll take like 3 weeks, which means like January. So it'll all be post-processed and the slides will be overlaid. So all the speakers, we're going to need to collect all of the slide stacks. You're more than welcome to put them up online, share them with everybody. But we'll collect all the slide stacks and integrate them with video and audio. The photographers, Clinton Wolf and Ciprian Dutu, have been running around everywhere, flashing their cameras. And the other staff that helped with registration to make sure everything goes smooth. So that's Deanna Gibbs and Pat Partner here as well. So thank you very much, because it's the only reason we forgot a lot of things in this conference. For example, every time I looked at one of your name tags, I could say your name but had no idea where you worked. That was a little oversight. Also, we didn't collect any feedback from you. So the clapping is great and the excitement is great. We need that in more concrete form. So we're going to put together a survey, basically allow you to rate speakers and tell us what we did wrong, what we did right, what you liked. What you'd like to see next year, if you'd like to see it next year, and we'll be sending that to all the email addresses from which you registered. So if you would please respond to that when you get it, it should be short, it's probably going to be like a 2-minute survey. That would be really helpful for forming next year's search. And that's that. So I thought I would leave with something that is irreverent and odd. So, a brief history of computing. So, in 1877, this is an 1877 switchboard. This is awesome. This connected us all. And after running it for a brief period of time, they realized that an enormous modification had to happen. You see any differences there? Guys have this thing about them where they don't always behave the way that you would make clever. That's 3 diabetes and a Cascade waterfall. The switchboard didn't operate very well because the boys would curse and play pranks on all the people calling through. That's why they switched to almost exclusively women to operate switchboards, because they were professional. So, good luck with that. Try to be as professional as your counterparts. Well, we have a lot of evolution since then. So I'd like to take you on a brief history lesson that is both completely wrong and slightly anachronistic on how we got some of the technologies that were really important to this conference. So, for example, likely of Greek origin, we have the sundial, right? It's round, little spots around it, you tell what time it is. Later on in 1972, a watchmaking company called the Kenton Company made the digital watch, the first digital watch. We all know Ronald Rivas. That's the MD5 algorithm. So we took these ideas together and we kind of just wrote them side by side and produced the Dynamo paper, in my opinion. There's a little bit there, but that was Ernst Vogel who did that. I'm pretty sure that's basically what happened. Either that or there were a lot of drugs involved. So, next. This is actually patented, 1664. Sound transmission through tension dissonant wires. Right? So this is awesome. This is communication. Sometime shortly after that, FIFO was invented. 1969 was the first known FIFO implementation at Fairchild Semiconductor. And then this children did something. That works. Works well. And you know what other people are saying. So obviously, you put those together and you get publish subscribe model, which is so valuable to what we do. If only my network was as reliable as physical strength. So then a slightly more complicated one, which everyone here will probably appreciate. The binoculars. Binoculars were invented in 1854 by this Italian guy, Ignazio Porro. Pretty slick. They allow you to observe things. This was a great concept. Observe things at a distance. Ideally without changing their behavior, which doesn't work so well in computing, but we can get close. The mailbox. Oddly, you would think, like, okay, so the Greeks invented this. The actual personal mailbox didn't arrive until like the 18th century in France, and then spread around pretty much the entire world in the 19th century. And then some crazy fuckers got together in 1987 and decided to standardize a model that makes us all want to cry, which is the OSI model. Right? And then something interesting happened. Somebody decided to put all of these things together and create RFC 1901. Anybody know what RFC 1901 is? One. I'll swallow that.
SNMP?
SNMP. Which I believe led to the improvements of the news. So, yes. So, and also in 1956, IBM created this spinning disk of hell that had sound barrier limits and things like that, and said, let's stick data on it. So immediately, what did operational people do? They say, I'm watching things, I'm being told things, I have them in an IP stack. I'm going to stick them on a disk and draw pictures. And I have no data for the visual concept of visualizing data. But now we draw pictures of our data. And this is a good thing, it allows us to observe these things. Somebody had another idea. They said, I see that there's a problem, I want to be told that there's a problem. So they looked back, and this guy, Evangelista Torricelli, I'm married in Italian, I think I'd be able to do that better. In 1643, invented the pressure gauge using a barometric pressure, right? It uses a mercury filled tube and it pushes pressure on it, and you can see exactly, how pressurized something is. And then Christian Huygens in 1661 invented the U-tube version, which is what drives almost every single one of those little dials that you see in like nuclear reactors and things like that. So they decided, let's output the OSI stack into a steam gauge that tells us, oh shit, it's about to blow, right? That doesn't really help you because you have to have someone staring at it. So we plugged that into the SMS protocol, which led back to more improvements of the news. So this is what we really use today. And smarter people have been using control systems. And this is the guy that motivated me, was Harold Black. He made the first negative feedback amplifier that basically proved that I don't need to be involved in fixing something. He took the output of something, fed it back into an amplifier, and stabilized something. It was the first like electronic manifestation of stabilization systems. And what we all want is our systems to be stable, which is, as Brian Cantrell has articulately said, a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. What I really want is my monitoring system to be stable. So we took those ideas and put them in, and we created Circonus, which is built off of Breckenridge, and there are a lot of other monitoring systems out there that take all of these things and put them together. So that's the history of monitoring. So I think what we have to learn from this is that we need to keep on keeping on, right? Because everything that we have, when we look back, the nukes sucked until we had good ops engineers. It works. Elizabethan times, if they had been paid for 3 a.m., man, people would themselves all the time. So we will get it more and more right, and we need to keep improving this. And as Paul said, we're really teenagers in this industry. We have a lot of evolving to do. And all of those charts can go much, much further. We need to improve technology a lot. So I'd like to leave you with something more definitive than that. And I have an old nickname that I had in college. People call me Jesus. Has much longer hair. Same beard. So I will leave you the 10 Commandments of web scale. This is my web scale WAP campaign. First off, thou shalt not claim hugeness falsely. Okay? 1 terabyte is not a lot of data. 100 million tuples is not a big table. Right? 1,000 transactions, 10,000 transactions is not a lot of transactions per second. Another axiom of numbers is that a distributed system must have 3 nodes. It's not distributed without 3 nodes. A geographically distributed system must have at least 1 node in 3 locations, or at least 3 nodes in 2 locations. Okay? Otherwise, you're not solving the problem you think you are, and when you add another node, it will break. 1 and 3, or 3 and 2. Thou shalt not worship shininess. Although it has everything job security. Or shiny does not mean good. Good means good. You need to cope with that. Thou shalt always remain recoverable. Data is our most precious thing. It's all we have at the end of the day, right? After you turn the system off and you wake up the next morning and turn it back on, it's what we all do with our it better be there. So you have to map your business liability into the liability of your systems, right? Those technical tolerances in the systems, things fail. Things are not eventually consistent. There's been this talk in the whole conference about eventual consistency. Eventually, it's been misinterpreted, at least for me, as Barron said. I'm really not connecting with the audience. What I mean is that if you give me a system that is eventually consistent, I expect it to be consistent eventually. If I go download, say 4 out of 5 of the NoSQL systems, I can within an hour guarantee divergence of nodes. There are broken implementations. These things are gone. It angers me. So fix them. Eventually consistent means you've given me a promise to get there eventually. And there are bugs in these pieces of software. They need to be fixed. You have to test your systems. You have to trust your systems. And then you have to be burned by your systems. So you never trust your systems. Force failures. And in particularly large-scale systems, you have to test special, right? How do you test 1,000 nodes? Do you buy 1,000 more? It seems unlikely. And recovering petabytes of data is non-trivial. So, I don't think I need to say this to too many people in this room, but if you could pass it along. Respect that different problems may need different solutions. There are no silver bullets. And this one's complicated enough that I had a hero. If I have a set of technology, if I have a set of problems P, and they're being solved by technology T, great. If I have a new technology that T's not so good for, and I decide that S solves it really well, that does not mean that all of new P including P is solved by S. You're allowed to diverge, you're allowed to have a new technology in your stack. You don't have to change your entire MySQL infrastructure to Cassandra because you have one new problem that isn't good for MySQL. Or vice versa. So, you get poorly fitted solutions that way. And we get a lot of customers, so if you want to do that, just refer them. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's technology. Not as good as you think it is. This is why, one of the reasons why we wanted to run this conference is because I wanted the truth from people on how all this brilliant, shiny shit is shit. It doesn't work. It explodes all the time. We've lost data in every system we've ever deployed. If you haven't, you didn't look hard enough. So the idea is like, I wish I had Bigtable. You don't have those problems. That's not true. A lot of these technologies do not apply to your problem. You're coveting their technology, but in doing so, you're coveting their problems. So generate your own solutions. And do it by sharing experiences, not so much by implementations. Right? I covet my neighbor's failure because I can learn from his failure, and I should be generous and share mine. That which cannot be measured cannot be scaled. Period. In a world where nothing is implemented, this is kind of the mind fuck, if you will, right? So I'm going to build a bridge, right? So I have a design of a bridge, and then I have a civil engineer come in and talk about stresses and shear factors and all sorts of stuff, and they build a bridge. I have two things now. I have a design of a bridge, and I have an implementation of a bridge. When I go write code, it is the design. That is the design of what I have. There is no implementation of that. There is only execution of that design. 10 years later, that design will be unmarred by time. It will not degrade. There will be no stress factors in it. It will work exactly the same as it did day one. You will learn a lot new about it. But it is what you wrote. It doesn't change. There is no implementation. There is only design. Computers run your designs in pure form. So, if you have this, by measuring these things, right, it's the closest thing we have to reality. Like the models for systems and the code for systems are these pure designs, and they have no point unless they're validated against empirical data. You have to pull the data out and put them together all the time to understand them better. So measure everything, forget nothing, and a measurement is a prerequisite of success. So, operate even in the greatest of storms. This is very web-centric. There are a lot of enterprise systems that have the abort thing. Brian's talk this morning was something about the actuators in a plane, and if you step really hard on one, the tail will fall off. That's interesting. That should never happen in the air. Guarantee that. But if it happened on the runway, I think there's a lot of enterprise engineers that would say, that's not a bad failure case. Guarantee they're not taking off, right? It's not working. Right? So that's good, right? If it's gonna fail fast, right? Just do it, break. The doors fall off and the wheels fall off the car. Well, you know what? The couplings were loose and you could have had an accident at 60 miles an hour. We detected it at 1 mile an hour and the wheels fell. That's not a good attitude on the web, right? You have millions and millions of consumers, and these things still have to keep working. So, individual components cannot sacrifice the greater good. You can always sacrifice the individual user for the greater good. Right? These decisions are not moral decisions anymore. They're numbers. Right? This is easy. And you should take steps to make sure that you can sacrifice both users and components in your system at will to make sure that the machine keeps going. embrace the math of engineers. Okay? 89 plus 23. Quick, anyone? 110. Right? It's two significant digits. I don't really care that it's 112. 89 and 23. Right? 89 and 23 does not equal 11.2. Right? Which is worse? Decimal part in the wrong spot, or rounding the right number of significant digits in the first place? Right? I don't know how many times clients shall remain nameless go in and they're like, we have these loose indexes, man, they're pegged. You know, they're doing 1,000 disk IOPS. I was like, that seems really unlikely, right? They're random disk IOPS. How is this happen? I want those drives. I'm like, no. We have 6 drives and rate 0. I'm like, that is pushing the envelope, right? And still, I mean, that's fast. That's your peg. That's crazy. They're like, yeah, our indexes are 18 gigs. I'm like, wow, man. We have 16 gigs of RAM in the box. Wait a minute. No, just do the math there. Wait. You're telling me that you can fit this, let's give the kernel 2 gigs for posterity, right? You have 14 gigs of this 18 gigs in cache hot, and you're sustaining 1,100 IOPS a second? That's a lot of reads. Are you telling me that your whole data set is randomly that available to the app that you're still pushing it that way? I mean, the obvious solution is that you put 24 gigs in, it just fits. But still, those numbers don't make sense. And they're like, what's that MB? It's 1,100 milliops. The engineering math doesn't make sense. Your decimal point is clearly in the wrong spot. And they're like, oh, we don't need to buy 12 new servers. We have too many. Right? So you need to do engineering math. All of this stuff should be validated with back of the envelope math. And thou shalt have an adequate quantity of envelope. Thou shalt perform most favorably. Scaling out is required in some problem spaces. Poor performance is not required in any. And one should not induce the other. There is no excuse for performing poorly. And coming back to my point, thou shalt be consistent eventually. It's not an excuse to not get there. I don't care if it takes a day or 2 days, but if you actually have divergent data, you have problems. Building these systems is hard. It's a hard problem. There are some people that do it well. If they cannot be proved correct, you shall not use them. And because 10 Commandments always take 11. Thou shalt share with your brothers and sisters. Because we can learn from our failures, and we can learn from the experiences of our peers. Those are the 2 sources of real good experience. I mean, experience is both a noun and a verb. It's something you can only do. It's something you can have by doing it, right? So I suggest a healthy mix of those 2. And thank you very, very much for coming to Surge. And we're going to hand out books, so don't leave. Awesome.